Colorado Springs, DEA agents detained more than 100 people after a raid on a club, turning them over to immigration authorities.
ICE has been clear we're targeting public safety threats and national security threats. I can't believe there's any elected official, and especially a judge, that doesn't believe we should be doing that, and they should be helping us. You can sit aside and watch. You can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily here live in Washington, D.C. Well, folks, today, of course, is April 28th, 2025, Anno Domini. Let's all go back. Let's wind back the clock a little bit to January of 2025. A couple of months ago, so we're talking about the 100 days. The 100 days is here. Well, one of the things that started at the very beginning of the Trump administration was the crash. The Black Hawk crash here in Washington, D.C., not far from where I sit right now, into the river of the Potomac, which separates Washington, D.C. from the Pentagon. And this was a horrific crash. 67 people lost their lives, including 11 children and their parents. And be clear about this, 11 children and their parents. The next day, I actually had the opportunity to travel to Reagan National Airport where this took place and was there with NTSB. We reported this at the time, and we were on a visit with the Secretary of Homeland Security for the Coast Guard recovery efforts, interviewed Secretary Noem right just feet away from where this helicopter and where the bodies lay. Well, now the report has come out, and the New York Times posted this yesterday. Many people were asking, what could it be? Well, it was pilot error. That was the case. The pilot, female, Rebecca Lobach, who also worked in the Biden White House, ignored orders and warnings to move or to get out of the way or to descend right before she crashed into the airplane. President Trump talked about this as well and blamed it at the time. Let's play the clip.
I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers. And one of the other things I will tell you is that the systems that were built, I was going to rebuild the entire system, and then we had an election that didn't turn out the way it should have, but they didn't build the systems properly.
And there you go, folks. President Trump called it out at the time, and it turns out President Trump was right. DEI ends lives. We'll be right back. Jack Posobiec.
understand what America First truly means. Welcome to the second American Revolution.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we are back. Human Events Daily. We're in Washington, D.C., and I want to also bring in now the third hour audience of the Charlie Kirk Show on the Salem Radio Network. Huge show today, and of course, we're talking illegal immigration and how you can help the administration, because Tom can't do it all by himself, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has always put America first, securing our borders, strengthening our economy, and standing up to the global elites who'd rather see us fail. And just like Trump is fighting to protect America's future, you should be fighting to protect your financial future, too. While others are distracted, gold is quietly making history, hitting record highs, moving part of our savings into real physical assets like gold and silver that doesn't depend on Wall Street is a smart move. Thinking about protecting your retirement is not enough. Taking action is. Roll over part of your IRA, 401k, TSP, or make a direct purchase of gold and silver today and enjoy the peace of mind that comes with it. I trust my partners at Allegiance Gold to make the process simple and secure for you. Call them now at 844-577-POSO or visit protectwithposo.com. That's 844-577-7676, 844-577-7676, or protectwithposo.com and get a free gold coin on qualified investment. America is worth protecting, and so is everything you've worked for. All right, folks, huge show today. And we're really looking forward at everything that's come in first 100 days of the administration, President Trump here in the White House, but also Tom Homan. Tom Homan coming in with illegal aliens and meeting everything that's gone on through there. But I also wanted to say, I got to throw out there, folks, So this is a little something a little close to home, and something that for those of you that have been watching or following the program back in November will remember. Well, there was a day that my brother and me and Kev, went on down to the Eagles game. And I want to play. Do we have that video, guys, of us going through the crowd and everybody is cheering? Because we threw on our MAGA hats and we go through the crowd and everyone just starts cheering, just starts celebrating. Everyone's having an absolutely fantastic time. They see the hats, and it was a really, really great moment. Well, here's the thing. There were a few guys afterwards who weren't fans of that. And what do? They waited to try to sucker punch us as we were going up for the halftime, as we were going up to get some concessions. I think we're just going to the bathroom, whatever, as you do when you're at the game. Well, they went after my brother, and I don't like people going after my brother. And so that is the issue. That's the issue that we decided to start a little scuffle, and we went in to Eagles jail. And so, yes, we did end up getting sent to Eagles jail. And now, today, the Eagles will be arriving very soon at the White House. They went on to win the Super Bowl. Of course, Trump went on to win the presidency just a few days later. Now the Eagles as well will be visiting the White House as Super Bowl champions. And Saquon Barkley, the incredible running back for the Eagles, who, by the way, at that same game where we got sent to Eagles jail and had the MAGA hat situation, well, as it turns out, that's the game where he has his most viral clip ever, and he performs this move. I believe they're calling it the reverse hurdle. And this is where he's going up against the Jaguars, and he spins around the first the first linebacker, and then boom, reverse hurdles over the second. And it's just an incredible moment for everyone. And that's exactly the same game that we were there. So Saquon Barkley goes out with President Trump yesterday for a game of golf. And he's been getting some crap about this. He's been getting a ton of crap because President Trump is someone who's the president of the entire country. So President Trump is someone who represents all of us. There's no such thing as these like people say, oh, there's blue states and red states. No. We all have one president, and we all need to stop talking like that. So when Biden was president, he was the president of everyone. In fact, everyone talked about that. Well, when Donald Trump is the president, he is the president of everyone. So Saquon Barkley goes up there and says, yeah, I went and played golf with President Trump. And he said, I played golf with Obama, too. Nobody had a problem with that. And I don't remember anyone, by the way, on the right attacking him over this. And so this is the thing, folks. When it comes down to moving forward, when it comes down to winning, when it comes down to champions, Saquon Barkley is a champion. And he sees that. President Trump sees that and understands, right? Real respect's real. That's why he's willing to go sit down with them. I don't know if any videos or images of them actually playing golf have come out yet, or if they have, I haven't seen any. But this is a moment, I think, that whether you, and look, you know, as a guy from the Philadelphia area who went to school in North Philly, went to college up there at Temple, and you know, been an Eagles fan my entire life. You know, when you grow up in that area, that's just kind of how it works. You're born, you get handled an Eagles jersey and a Phillies pennant, Phillies hat or a baseball glove. That you also understand, by the way, that there are lots of liberals who are supportive of the team, and there are lots of liberals who say, "Oh, you shouldn't go with President Trump." Well, I'm glad that the Eagles are going, and yeah, I heard that some of them aren't, and I think that's sad. I think that's very sad. But it shows where we are as a country right now. Go and sit down and say, this man won the popular vote. He's trying as hard as possible to put this country back together after it was divided by people like Barack Obama and people like Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who wanted to criminalize everyone in the MAGA movement, who wanted to criminalize pro-lifers, who wanted to criminalize anyone who was a traditional Catholic. No. It was Joe Biden who wanted to treat you as a second-class citizen if you didn't have a COVID shot. Now you got a president who will sit there and people say, oh, this guy's racist, this guy's a Nazi, this guy's a bigot, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. When at the end of the day, he's trying to do the best job he can for all Americans. And I've spent time with the president, and people know this. I'm not hiding anything, but I'm not talking outside of school either, right? When you see him backstage or when you see him in private, there's never been a moment. I've never heard anyone say that there's a moment of him going, oh, and this will be the way that I make more money. He's lost money in his business. He's lost money by doing this. He's lost deals. He had a great business. He had a huge net worth. He didn't need this. He didn't need any of this. Great life. He wanted to do this. He wanted to do the right thing for the country. So the least celebrities and athletes and all these types could do is say, you know what? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to give him a shot. And everyone was invited. Every single member was invited. That's how it ought to be. But some people, and I'm talking to those people, by the way, those libs back in the Philly area, want to sit there and say, oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. Just understand, you are members of a hate cult. You are people who are tearing us apart, tearing families apart, tearing communities apart over politics, because you have rejected religion and you've made your politics your new religion. This is on you guys. You have torn all of this apart. So take something like the winning Super Bowl team going to visit the White House, and you have to play politics with that. Because I'm looking, I see the discourse out there. It's disgusting, and it needs to stop. We got a huge show in store. We're going to get more into the illegal immigration question. Illegal alien, by the way, I think is the way we should be saying it. We got Kenny Cody coming up next. Make sure you're following us at Human Events and Human Events Daily on the podcast side. We'll be right back. Jack Posobiec.
Terrence Bates here with your Real America's Voice News Break. Thanks so much for being along for the ride. President Trump is taking a bit of a victory lap this week as he celebrates his accomplishments during the first 100 days of his current administration. Securing the border was one of the key issues the commander-in-chief campaigned on, and during a White House press briefing earlier this morning, border czar Tom Homan heaped praise on the president for the work being done at the border and when it comes to deporting illegal aliens.
The border secure. President Trump saving lives. President Trump has proven no one does it better than President Trump. There is no equal, it's not even close. So God bless the men and women of the Border Patrol. God bless the men and women of ICE who strap a gun to the hip every day, put on a Kevlar vest to not only secure our border and protect our national security, but the ICE agents in the interior, they're removing public safety threats and national security threats every day. While you're all sleeping at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, there are men and women out there enforcing the law and making this country safe again.
Meantime, more than 100 suspected illegal immigrants face the possibility of deportation after being busted during a federal raid on an illegal after-hours nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Video of the DEA and ICE agents making arrests early Sunday morning is making its rounds on the internet. This is it here. The DEA says the club had been under investigation for several months for alleged crimes including drug trafficking, prostitution, and what the agency describes as crimes of violence. Cocaine and an undisclosed number of guns were found at the scene. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump describing those arrested as, quote, some of the worst people illegally in our country. He also took a shot at judges who continue to push back against his deportation efforts, saying, if we don't win this battle at the Supreme Court, our country as we know it is finished. That's a quick check of your headlines. As always, we appreciate you being along for the ride. Now, let's get you back to Human Events Daily.
Today, they talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, Jack Posobiec here, back live, Human Events, Washington, D.C. Folks, listen up. Because if you are still drinking that corporate watered-down nonsense they passes for coffee, or at least they call it coffee, it's time for a serious wake-up call. We're talking about Blackout Coffee, and Blackout Coffee is not just a coffee, it is a statement, a declaration that you're done with weak beans, with weak values. This is a high-octane American roasted fuel for those who grind harder, stand taller, and never back down. Look, you know that I use Blackout Coffee. It powered me through all of Lent when I was not even having any energy drinks. So Blackout Coffee isn't playing games. They're cranking out now more bags than ever. They're shipping faster than ever, and they're keeping you locked in with coffee that actually fires you up, whether you're chasing those big goals, crushing the daily grind, or just refusing to drink coffee made by people who hate you. Blackout Coffee has got your back. So stop settling. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/POSO and use promo code POSO for 20% off your first order. Brew like a patriot. Brew Blackout. That's blackoutcoffee.com/POSO. Stop waiting. blackoutcoffee.com/POSO. I want to get into, we've got Kenny Cody here as our guest. He's the opinion editor over at humanevents.com. Kenny, how are you?
I'm good, Jack. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well, and man, there's a bunch of breaking news that's just coming down the pike, actually, that I'm looking at. And so before we get into your op-ed today, and I wanted to talk about Tom Homan. So first, we were just talking about football in the last segment. Well, and the Eagles are on their way to the White House in just short order. Well, President Trump has just announced, and this is interesting, that the Washington Commanders will be returning to Washington, D.C. in a new stadium. But here's the very interesting way he phrased it. I'm thrilled to announce that the Washington football team will be returning to our nation's capital. The new stadium deal is a huge win for Washington, D.C., the team's incredible fan base, et cetera, et cetera. So, whoa, wait a minute. Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong, did he say Washington Commanders?
He did not say the Washington Commanders. He said the Washington
He did not say Washington Commanders, because here in the D.C. area, I see people with Redskins gear every day. every single day. You see the decals on cars. You see Washington Redskins. They don't want Commanders. You do see people with that, but I'm telling you, they tried to kill it. Whatever during 2020 era. It's something where it's not going. And so over the weekend, what did President Trump post up? We're getting back Columbus Day. Now what are we bringing back? I think that he's setting up bringing back the Washington Redskins. Do you think, is that what you're getting out of this, Kenny? Is that your read on it?
I think so. And I think especially given the benefit back to the Washington, D.C. taxpayers, those who are coming back, give these tax revenue coming from the Washington Redskins or Washington football team, Washington Commanders, wherever they are currently. I guess we're going to be in debate for the next few weeks about what they're going to be called.
Yeah, I think it was Washington football team for like a time when they didn't have the name set up yet. That was what it was before, and now they're going. So now he's looking at, and I got to say though, every time that I'm going past the RFK Stadium, which was the old stadium, it's just an eyesore. It's just an absolute eyesore that sits right there in the Anacostia River. And if anyone's seen it, this thing is falling apart. It's dilapidated. It's broken. I mean, that's really cool. I wish, how cool would it be, by the way, if we could continue calling the new stadium? I mean, I understand economics are what they are, but I'd love for it to be called RFK Stadium once more. The other breaking news, Kenny, right before the break here that I want to get in is, and I haven't even dug into it all yet, Ed Martin. We need to confirm Ed Martin. The United States Senate needs to get this in because he's just announced a major investigation. Folks, breaking news. The U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. is now investigating, wait for it, Wikipedia over foreign influence. Wikipedia is, quote, engaging in a series of activities that could violate its obligations under Section 501c3 of Title 26 of the U.S. Code. Did Wikipedia break the law? Could this threaten Wikipedia's tax-exempt status? 1 minute till the break. Kenny Cody, I mean, we've seen the bias. Could it be that this was being funded at Wikipedia by foreign actors?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, all this talk about Russia's influence on the United States elections over the last decade, and we're finally going to crack down on actual interference of information in our elections and in our information output. Mainstream media is biased enough in terms of, how they portray news, how they portray President Trump and MAGA. But when you're looking at Wikipedia, which is a reference sourcing database, basically, they have all these articles that are based on references. When you see foreign governments that are going on there and literally manipulating information for people that are in debates, people who are citing papers, media that's citing sources, we need to crack down on that as soon as we can.
We know what they're doing. They're citing Wikipedia. They're going there. They're getting the read through, and it's nonsense. You can't look up anything political on that page. It is completely controlled by the far left neckbeards and possibly also foreign state actors. I love it. Kenny Cody, Jack Posobiec. This is Human Events. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. President Trump's 100th day in office is this coming Wednesday, but he's starting the week touting his accomplishments. It all started first thing this morning with border czar Tom Homan discussing ongoing efforts to secure the border and ramp up deportations of illegal aliens. Homan says 1.4 million people are currently in the United States and under deportation orders.
Make no mistake, if you're in the country illegally and you fail to do what the law requires, we will prosecute you, you will go to jail, then we'll deport you.
That's one of the many issues the administration plans to address this week.
Tomorrow, I will host a press briefing at this same time, bright and early again, to highlight the Trump administration's economic accomplishments with our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. And tomorrow night, President Trump will travel to Michigan to discuss all that he has achieved on behalf of the American people. On Wednesday, the president will host an open press cabinet meeting where each cabinet member will discuss their success thus far and their plans for the future.
Meantime, lawmakers in the U.S. House are back on Capitol Hill in Washington today after a 2-week break back in their districts. Many endured heated town hall meetings with constituents and now return to work to hammer out a budget that can pass both the House and the Senate. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise says he and his colleagues would like to have the reconciliation budget on the president's desk by June. The budget will include extending the Trump tax cuts while also funding border security and other Trump priorities. Right now, one of the major sticking points between House Republicans and the Senate GOP is spending cuts. The House is calling for much steeper spending cuts than is the Senate. Well, that's going to do it for your headlines. As always, we appreciate having you along for the ride. I'm Terrence Bates. Now, let's get you back to Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec.
And Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, Jack Posobiec here. We are back. Human Events. We're on with Kenny Cody and Tom Homan, the border czar over at ICE and really the Department of Homeland Security is and gave this incredible press conference early this morning. Everyone's talking about it. We have a clip that I wanted to share for all of you guys right now.
As I said from day one, you don't have to support ICE's operations. You can support sanctuary cities if that's what you desire to do. Sanctuary cities can stand aside and watch ICE keep their community safe, because any public official, whether you're mayor, city councilman, or governor, their number one responsibility is protection of communities. And ICE has been clear, we're targeting public safety threats and national security threats. I can't believe there's any elected official, and especially a judge, that doesn't believe we should be doing that, and they should be helping us. But I said from day one, you can sit aside and watch, you can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line, and I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted, judge or not.
So there you go, folks. You will be prosecuted, judge or not. And what did we see last week? There was a judge who thought that she was above the law, and she found out a little bit differently. By the way, guys, if you can find that photo of her with the double handcuffs, oh my gosh, where they needed 2 sets of handcuffs because someone's arms were having a little bit of trouble getting around her back. Well, that was Judge Hannah Dugan. Kenny Cody is here. He's the opinion editor at humanevents.com. Kenny, you've got a huge new piece out. We just saw the press conference this morning. Talk to us about the importance that the administration is making here they're entering the 100th day tomorrow. Talk us about the importance of the illegal immigration fight.
Well, I mean, the mainstream media and the Democrats are trying to paint, these issues that the Trump administration is prioritizing with mass deportations and tariffs, and especially mass deportations, as being inhumane, unpopular. People don't like it. It's too mean. But that story kind of changes when you look at recent polling. Young voters approve of mass deportations and harsh immigration policy more than any other time in American history. 18 to 29-year-olds, 18 to 30-year-olds, even 18 to 45-year-olds approve of this policy more than any other time of the last 2 decades, and especially within Republican politics. It seems like in the last 10 years that young voters are kind of rejecting this idea that they're all leftist, blue-haired, pro-trans, pro-gender dysphoria on college campuses, and adopting these cultural policies that are so far left and Marxist-leaning. This new generation of young people is leaning more conservative than ever before. And it's because these deportation policies are not only popular amongst the middle age, amongst 45-year-olds, 35-year-olds, they're popular among 18 to 20, that young age conservative. And I think it's because of what Tom Homan just said. These are what's popular among Americans. These are the people that elected President Trump to do exactly what he has prioritized in prioritizing domestic soil over foreign soil, prioritizing Americans over illegal immigrants and illegal aliens, and especially prioritizing peaceful citizens over flat-out criminals. And that's exactly what Democrats and leftists are doing, like these judges and these mayors, these, even governors and J.B. Pritzker that want to prioritize harboring illegal aliens to the fact of just opposing federal government policies and efforts. And when's the last time we saw this uprising of civil disobedience against a federal government department? Probably David Koresh against the ATF. That's what these Democrats are doing. They're prioritizing criminals over the federal government trying to do their job and protect Americans. And that's what Republicans and conservatives need to be saying, is exactly that.
And I love your emphasis, and you write about this as well, that you tie this to the youth support, and that's because I think there really is this generational tendency towards, I'm just going to say it, action, right? People want, especially with millennials, with Gen Y, with Gen Z, they want to see the action. They don't just want to hear, some flowery talk, or, drop the mic. We dropped the mic on the press conference. No, we don't want just the drop the mic moment, right? That's like Charlie Kirk can do that on campus, and he does a great job of it. But Charlie Kirk's not the one who's going out there on a street corner at 3 a.m. to round up MS-13. All right, that's the job of ICE. That's what people want to see. They want that action. We love you, Charlie. We love you.
Well, and that's exactly right. The federal government is doing their job. I mean, Charlie Kirk and you, Jack, and all the conservative influencers that have an impact on our American politics are doing their job, and we can be that voice for the voiceless. But the federal government has a job that, remember, Americans elected them to do. Mass deportations were approved over more than any other time in American history leading into the November 2024 election. And now that's being implemented. This disobedience among public officials, whether they be judges, sheriffs, mayors, governors, does not need to be tolerated. And that's what Tom Homan was saying at this press conference, is the American people elected them to do this job. Everybody knew Tom Homan was going to get elected to handle this. Everybody knew Donald Trump was going to make it one of his main priorities on domestic soil was to crack down on criminals and crack down on illegal immigrants, illegal aliens that were existing here in the United States. Get rid of the criminals first. Then we'll get rid of everybody else. That's what Trump always said the entire time. And these deportations need to be escalating. These judges, these activist judges that are impeding on policy that Americans voted for, there need to be more arrests. There need to be more deportations. That's exactly what we want. We do not elect these judges to impede their authority on the president that was democratically elected by the American people. We need to make sure that we are putting people in the right places, and we're cracking down on these politicians and bureaucrats that are impeding upon the Trump administration's priority of illegal immigrants being deported from the country. We need to ensure these things are being prioritized. Tom Homan and his Department of Homeland Security are being prioritized and given the power to do exactly what we elected the Trump administration to do. And that's why these policies are landing with young Americans. They're landing with different generations across voter spans and polls, is because these policies are popular, whether the Democrats like it or not. I'm sorry, they're not going to have amnesty to ensure that they're bringing voters back to vote for them once they're brought back to the country. But this is what the American people voted for and what the Trump administration promised they would prioritize in this new era.
The fact of the matter is, by the way, and this is something I love, shout out to Joshua Lysek, because he said this earlier on X when he was coming in on this. He said, guys, we can't let Tom Homan do this all by himself. We can't just expect him or Charlie Kirk or Jack Posobiec or Steve Bannon to go out there, Kenny Cody. No, what we need is get this number and just lock it into your phone, folks, all right? 866-DHS, the number 2 ICE. 866-DHS-2 ICE. Folks, you could be calling the ICE tip line right now. You could be going to your website. They have a website that's set up as well on ice.gov where you can go and put in who you saw, when you saw it, what you think the situation is. This is something really where the administration, I understand they're prioritizing the worst come first and all, or the worst go first rather. But this idea that they can just do everything and be everywhere, no. I think, Kenny, we've got to find ways to really activate the entire MAGA base when it comes to them, because this will be at the end of, look, people talk about Trump's 100 days, and I've given statements to reporters on this. They're all hitting me up. We were at this, out in D.C. over the weekend doing the party circuit a little bit. And they're saying, what do you think about the 100 days? What do you think about? I said, you can't judge him based on 100 days. You can't. You have to judge him on his last day in office, looking backwards. That 200 million, that's your benchmark. How far down did you get that 200 million? The housing crisis, the people who are living in poverty, the living conditions for the American people, how much of that did you raise? The wars going on overseas, how many of those were put to bed? Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, look, President Trump's many things, but he's not Christ Jesus. So I don't expect to be performing miracles, although we have seen at least one miracle associated with President Trump. So he's got one. I'll give him the one at least, and at Butler, Pennsylvania. But look, when we work towards our canonization of the sainthood of President Trump, which will be a little bit down the line, maybe 50, 60 years from now, that when it comes down to it, you have to look at this from his last day in office back. You just have to look at his last day in office back. And with that 200 million number, look, there's going to be a lot of this. And that's why I would say, Kenny, is for people who out there, and I don't know if you've seen it online, man, but these people, they want to black pill, they want to run the panicins, right? They say, he hasn't done it yet. And I think that's a cop-out. I think that's a total cop-out. You get these fake opinion polls saying, people don't like Trump anymore. Total cop-out. What are your thoughts?
I absolutely agree. I think when you're looking at the most consequential presidency in terms of the plan to implement these policies in American history in the Trump administration, you have to be willing to give him time. He's going to go in office on January 20th. We're of the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and he is literally wanting to reform every bit of the federal government and its impact on the United States citizen. When you have had a president over the last 4 years that has prioritized everybody but Americans. They prioritize Ukrainians. They prioritize, French Canadians. They prioritize France itself, Germany, Italy, any other country they want to think of. I promise you they were prioritized over Americans. And when you have had that done over the last 4 years, it's going to take a little bit of time for the Trump administration to actually get in and make the impact that he wants to implement and what he was voted to do. Whether it's ICE, whether it's trying to decrease the ability of the Department of Defense and the Department of State giving needless funds over to Ukraine, us concentrating on prioritizing the EU and the UN over American sovereignty, whatever it might be, we have got to give him time. And I think the first 100 days have went great. And I don't know why you see so much blackpilling online. You're seeing the roots of the eventual impact being planted currently with ICE, with DHS, with the Department of Defense, with the Department Department of Justice, with the Department of State, you're seeing all these reforms and good reforms of these cabinet members. Actually, the Department of Health with Robert Kennedy, all of these priorities are saying we're going to do this. And these are ideas that we have wanted to see implemented with past Republican administrations.
Kenny, quick break coming up here. We're going to hold, Kenny, can we hold you? Can we hold you for the next segment?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to hold Kenny. By the way, Still Boneless is writing in. He's watching. He says, we should set up ICE community leaderboards, incentivize the competition. How many illegals have you actually gotten deported that have led to successful deportations? We can set it up. We can have competitions. We can have rewards. We can have awards. Folks, there's so much we can do. We've got to activate the MAGA public on this. I love it. 1-866 DHS to ICE. We'll be right back. Jack Posobiec, Human Events.
In 40 years of doing this job, people always want to say, why are you so emotional when you testify? Why are you so emotional on network? Because if they wore my shoes for 40 years, they'd understand why I'm emotional. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 years old that were raped multiple times by the cartel members. And then when you get to your knees and you talk to that little girl and everything innocent and pure has been ripped from her, when you listen to the Lake and Riley, 17 minutes, that young lady fighting for her life, don't just think, okay, a young woman died. Think of how she died, the terror that she went through, and these children that are sexually assaulted. I stood in back with a tractor trailer and 19 dead people at my feet that baked to death. illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. And so every sick person we take off the streets, especially child rapists, it makes this country much safer. Every illegal alien we arrest, public safety threat, one at a time, makes this country safer.
When I'm working long hours, I'm always listening to Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
All right, Jack Posobiec, here we are, final segment on Human Events Daily. And we've heard it, folks. We've heard so much. President Trump was elected, came down the escalator 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years in June. For one reason only, to get illegal aliens out of this country. By the way, they're not immigrants, because immigrants, like my wife, the lovely and beautiful Tanya Tay, come to a country following a legal process. That's what an immigrant is. You can't call someone an illegal immigrant because that's not an immigrant. You're an alien. You're a foreign citizen, someone who has broken the laws of our country to be here. And in fact, I love this idea from Still Boneless. Go ahead, folks. What we're going to be doing is we're going to start the nationwide leaderboards for your community. We maybe, I don't know, break it down by state. We'll see them. It's like, my kid's school does a fundraiser. You got to, who's raised the most money in the school? Well, it'll be just like that. How many, and by the way, it's not just based on reports. How many people did you actually get deported? So remember, that phone number again, folks, is 866-DHS2ICE. 866-DHS2ICE. And remember to check out ice.gov, ladies and gentlemen. Go and find your legal aliens. Report them wherever they are. Folks, report them, deport them. Report them, deport them. 866-DHS2ICE, ice.gov. Kenny Cody, this is the kind of thing that I really think that people go off on these different side quests, to use video game parlance. There's so many side quests out there, but I keep telling people trade and immigration are the two issues, along with foreign policy, that really built the MAGA movement. Isn't that right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm talking about in my piece. These topics landed with the younger generations. And I know that the mainstream media, cultural Marxists, those on college campuses always wanted to say, well, these are just too mean. We need to be nice to everybody. Everybody needs to get along. No, like this new generation of young conservatives are conservatives because of these policies, because of tariffs, because of our American first foreign policy concentration, and because of mass deportation, where these people are going to be able to get the jobs that they want and build the companies that are going to prioritize on employing Americans first, because of these policies being prioritized through a nationalist, populist mindset that Donald Trump ran on 10 years ago, like you said, to this year, back in 2015. These policies are the reasons that the Republican Party and the GOP are having the gains. And remember, they are not Republicans for the sake of being Republicans. They're Republicans because of the new priority issues that the Republican Party has adopted because of President Trump, because of his campaign, and because of the MAGA movement. These people would have been Democrats 10 or 15 years ago, and I don't think anybody is denying that. But they are going on these college campuses and they're being indoctrinated by the professors, by the clubs that they want to participate in, by sports, by any means necessary. They're trying to be indoctrinated, and this rejection mindset of adopting, saying, hey, we want an open border. Hey, we want to trans kids. Hey, we want to concentrate on, on the minutes of society and the smallest bits of population in society and cater to them instead of the modern everyday American. And conservatives and young conservatives are beginning to realize that they are beginning to prioritize tariffs on trade policy, mass deportations on illegal alien policy, and in terms of the foreign policy, concentrating on not seeing young men and women and children to die overseas for the military-industrial complex. And these three issues are why we are more attractive as a movement, the Republican Party is more attractive as a party, and the conservative movement is more attractive as a movement overall in 2025 than it ever has been before in American history. And it's because of the priorities that President Trump, Tom Homan, and others are prioritizing in the White House.
There you go, folks. And people can say this till people need to internalize this. President Trump is popular and his policies are even more popular. Why? Because these are issues that people support way more than his approval rating. And that's the entire point, right? Sometimes you need a guy who's going to come in and just clean things up. And you don't want someone who's going to come in and be nice for that type of operation. You want someone to come in and maybe be a little bit of a punisher. Kenny Cody, where can people follow you, brother?
And they can follow me at KDCodyTN on Truth Social and X, and find all of my article archives over at humanevents.com. If you click on my name, Jack, appreciate you always, brother.
Appreciate you as well. All right, folks, that is it for us today. Make sure if you missed anything, go and follow the podcast at Human Events Daily, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe there. And ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.